well, I'm back. I've had the Google Pixel Watch now for, I think, about 2 months since I've had it, and I definitely meant to record this a little bit sooner, but life got the best of me, and so I'm finally sitting down to tell you a little bit about the Google Pixel Watch now. So I'm going to start off, and actually I'm going to talk about a few different things. I'm going to talk about battery life. I have some notes here that I took. Battery life, apps, and a lot of different applications, core functionality, and health. I'm kind of breaking the apps up into kind of what I see as core applications and then some of the apps that come through the App Store as well, right? So first, I'm actually going to start off with something that's not quite as sexy, which is battery life, but it's core to any of these smartwatch devices. So let's talk about battery first. Okay, so battery life, right? I think that's one of the core features of any smartwatches. How long can you use this thing before you have to be tethered to a charger? And if you're familiar with the Apple Watch, then you should know that, really full-featured smartwatches don't get a ton of battery life. Now, I'm coming to the Pixel Watch from the Fitbit Versa 2, which I have here. So this is my comparison point. I could compare it to an Apple Watch, but number one, I don't have an Apple Watch, and chances are, if you're watching this video, you have an Android phone, so Apple Watch is really not in the cards for you. So I'm going to kind of compare and contrast what I've been using for the better part of 2-3 years to this. And the Versa 2 is more of a fitness-focused smartwatch. And so I get about 5 days or 4 days of battery life with this. That's not going to be the case with the Pixel Watch. You're getting between 16 and 24 hours, and that's really dependent on some of the features that you enable. For instance, if you enable the feature that when you turn the watch, the screen comes on so you can see the time, that's really going to eat up your battery life. And to me, that's something I would really want to have, because having to turn it and then tap it to get to know the time is a little bit frustrating. And with the Fitbit Versa, it was always on, so it was always there. Now, other than that, I've found that I do get a full day though. I usually charge my watch at nighttime when I take a shower. I throw it on the charger and I leave it there for probably 30 minutes to 60 minutes. And I'm usually back up to 100% by the time I'm ready to put it back on again. And so I'll get to the next evening and the next evening. But if you're going on a trip, I used to be able to take a business trip for like 3 days and not even care about bringing the charger for this. That's not the case. You have to bring a charger and a charging brick to get this done. So overall, I think the battery life is within the expectations of this full-featured smartwatch genre, but I would love it if they could get to 2 or 3 days on these smartwatches while you still get all the same functionality, but you get the battery life longevity. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the core functionality of the watch, and I'll be honest, these are the features you're going to use the most. We all talk about the fancy apps and some of the other stuff. Quite honestly, it's the everyday stuff that you do in this core functionality that you'll use the most. Now, I'm going to start kind of from the top down, and at the very top are kind of this quick launch areas, these settings. They're not the settings app, but they're other things that you might use on a consistent basis. For instance, what's my battery life? What are my alarm settings? A bedtime mode, which I'll talk a little bit more when I talk about the health stuff. This phone has a flashlight, an airplane mode, of course, wallet, which I'm going to touch on a little bit. So, and then Google Home, which is, I use some. I have some home integration, but I also use Smart Things and some other, smart home stuff, but I do use Google Home a little bit. So that's kind of this top notification bar. If you go into the settings area, you'll see your things like connectivity, display, like what's the orientation. Someone might wear it on their right wrist or their left wrist, or they may have it flipped this way or that way. You can figure all those things out. Additional gestures and then settings, as you would assume, would be in there. Obviously, the watch face is customizable in the application. You can have, different things here. Like I have my fitness stuff and the weather and time and the date. This is pretty much fully customizable. And I think there's premium ones you can buy as well, but the ones that they include are pretty good. And then some of the other stuff that I use a lot, payments, right? You can double tap this button on the side and it'll open up your payment. And this is how I pay predominantly. Now, I came over, like I said, from a Fitbit Versa 2, and this was how I paid on my Fitbit, and the experience is very similar on the Pixel Watch, right? But some of the things the Pixel Watch does a lot better is when it comes to phone calls, text, and notifications. Now, notifications is probably the area where you're going to spend the most time because they're the things that pop up the most, so you'll kind of swipe and scroll. And what I've found with the notifications is they're super robust. It's a full-featured screen, so if you were to get a text message with an image, you can immediately see the image from your phone, which is really cool. It's definitely not an option on my old Versa 2. Now, in addition, you can respond. There's a little keyboard you can try to type out, but because it's a Google Watch, it obviously has voice integration. You can dictate to the watch, and it does a very good job because it's a Google product, which I have a Pixel. So, they're really good at picking up and understanding what you're saying, translating it, and being able to send a text. So the AI assistant features are fantastic on this watch. In addition, looking here, phone calls is another thing that on my old Versa, I could pick up a phone call, and if I was on Bluetooth, it was fine, but there was no way to talk through the watch. And I honestly thought when I got this, it was going to be a little bit gimmicky, like who would want to talk through their watch and the person on the other end wouldn't be able to understand me. And I've been pleasantly surprised. The other person, no one has complained and said, hey, it sounds like you're far away or you're talking like you're underwater. And I can hear what they're saying pretty good. Now, the speaker is not great on this device. You're not going to listen to a CD off the watch, but it's good enough to understand what the other person is saying and for me to make a decision if I need to pick the phone up or put in Bluetooth for a more robust conversation, so to speak. So those are the core functionality, the things you're going to use every day. And in my opinion, this watch does a great job across all of them, whether it's the notifications, the settings that you have, phone calls, text messages. It kind of wins at those things. And for that reason, I really like this device as an upgrade to something like the Versa 2. I don't know how to compare it to an Apple Watch. I'm sure theirs is fantastic as well, but in the kind of this Android space, I like it for that. Okay, let's talk about apps. And I'm going to break apps up into kind of two different categories. They're your, kind of your core apps that come on the device, the things that would come on your cell phone from the manufacturer, and then there are the additional apps, the third-party apps that are on your device. Now, when I think about the core apps, they're the things that I actually use the most. You have your alarm, timer, stopwatch, and I'll pull some of this up here. But, your core apps are going to be the ones that you get from Google. And I use the timer all the time. Obviously, I use the alarm quite consistently, the Google Assistant, your contacts, your phone. Of course, the health app, because of the Fitbit acquisition, is actually part of Google's suite, but I'm going to keep that as a third-party application. Your wallet, your maps, I don't really use that much, messages, and so on and so forth. And so the watch, those core apps work really well. In fact, there is an app on here for camera, which is really cool because if I click it here, it shows what my camera is showing, and I can use this to control my camera. And that has actually been one of the more annoying things when I'm doing these videos is I use my cell phone for most of the stuff that I do. So I have to walk around, hit record, come back, do it, and then go back and stop it. And there, as you imagine, there have been instances where something happened and it froze and I lost all of that footage, or I didn't hit the button properly or whatever. Now, the third-party applications are good as well. There's not a ton of them, and as you imagine with this kind of first-generation product, even though Wear OS has been out for a while, more manufacturers will come on over time. I just don't seem to use them that much, right? I don't go into the Outlook app because if I get an email, I get the notification and I can use the notification to go and do what I need to do. So yes, I could go in here and, click this and search down for Outlook and, look at, this email that I got about my package being delivered tomorrow. I just usually pull out my phone to do most of that stuff. So, the other kinds of applications that they have on here, Spotify is one. Spotify is actually not bad because I can at least pause and unpause music, move between music. Calm, which is something that is there for meditation. If I was to do that, I guess it could help me do a breathing exercise. Google Home is one that I might start to use more, but I end up using voice with the Google speaker more than I would just using the phone. So the other apps are there. It's not a robust ecosystem. I think Apple has way more stuff, but it's good enough. And like I said, the core functionality is so good that that's where I spend most of my time. Okay, the last category that I'm going to talk about is health and fitness. And this is one of the most important things for me on this watch. Not necessarily because I'm a health nut, but I came from a Fitbit. And one of the things that kept me for a long time from upgrading to any of the other smart watches was having to switch to a new fitness platform, whether it was Google Fit or Garmin or whatever these other Samsungs, whatever they were. I was heavily invested in Fitbit. I don't know how many years I've had Fitbit devices, but I just have used them. My family uses them. And so I wanted to stick with Fitbit. So I was actually excited when Google announced that they acquired Fitbit because I saw this future. I saw that they would eventually get to a point where they would take and integrate Fitbit into a full-featured smartwatch. And one of the downsides of, Fitbit smartwatches is it's their own proprietary platform, and it doesn't have the ecosystem, right? And we saw that with Windows Phone, right? You can have the features, but without the ecosystem, it really won't thrive. And Google has the ecosystem. And so the Fitbit features on this device are fantastic. I use it for all the same things I did before. Sleep is one of the things I use it for a lot. So I wear this at night and I activate that bedtime mode, which is a nice feature where the watch doesn't turn on in the middle of the night and get bright. And then all of the other exercise features, the auto detection. I had a soccer game on this past Wednesday, and it detected it. I didn't have to go in and say, I'm playing soccer. It detected I was playing a sport. It detected my heart rate and all of those other features, and it gave me the output at the end of it. So all of the Fitbit features work exactly the same as they did on my old watch. I haven't found any drop off or lag. And then there are a couple of other features that it comes with as well, which I've tried out, such as the EKG feature, which you can go into do an echocardiogram style session with your watch. Which I've done in the past just to test it out. And then you'll see here it even integrates on the front screen. It can show you my heart rate, and if you click into it, it brings up the Fitbit features. So what's my heart rate range for today? How much fat burn cardio have I done today? And then it'll allow you to open it into the application as well. And so if you just even go into the apps section here, you'll see there's a bunch of different Fitbit exercise, Fitbit Today, and then Fitbit EKG are some of the features that you'll have. So from a health and fitness standpoint, I don't see any lag from a dedicated fitness device. The one drop-off is 24 hours of battery life. This is 5 days, like I said before. And so if you need just a dedicated fitness device, I wouldn't do this. It's not for that. And then the other thing that I would have liked is when I first set this up, my thought process, and just test the mic, my thought process was, I will be able to wear this as kind of a full-featured smartwatch. And if I was going to play a sport, I could take this off and throw this on and then use this and then come back and swap it. And that's not the case from what I can tell. When I added the Google Pixel Watch onto the Fitbit application, it made me delete this from the application. So that makes it impossible for me to switch back and forth. And so if I could say one killer feature that could be added for somebody who wants kind of an equivalent Fitbit experience, if we're not going to get to the point where we can have 3 or 4 days of battery life, which is going to be hard in these tiny devices with the way batteries are, allow folks to switch back and forth. I would love to even switch this out for a smaller Fitbit, a cheaper Fitbit that I can throw on if I'm going to go exercise, and then I can switch back to this when I'm ready to go to work. So what are my overall impressions of Google's first iteration with this Pixel Watch? I think so far so good, right? They've made a watch that combines the great features of the Fitbit family that they acquired, really improved on their watch-focused operating system. They've given you a decent first iteration. I didn't even talk about how these bands come in and off. There's a really cool way they do that as well. But there are areas of improvement. Certainly the battery life is one. I think a lot of these, full-featured watches struggle with the battery life. I think they could improve there. Third-party app developers, if they see the traction with the watch, I think they will come to the platform over time. And for a lot of you, that might be super important. It's not as important for me. But I think most of the things they do really well. I mean, the core functionality, the notifications, the AI assistant, the phone calls, the payments. Google's built a great platform on Android for that stuff, and it's translated really well into the watch. The watch has become an extension of Android. And so it's really a good utility device. And so if you're in the market for one, this isn't a first-gen product I would skip, right? If you're in the market for a smartwatch, if you're an Android user and you're wondering, hey, should I invest? Is this going to be something that Google kills off in the spring? I don't know. I see legs with this. I think Apple's paved the way. And so I think as Google iterates, we're going to get different styles, better watches, better battery life over time. And I think the Fitbit integration is really killer if you're looking for a watch with a really good fitness-focused device as well. All right, thanks again for joining me here on Stephen Hellick Talks Tech. I hope you enjoyed that look into the new Google Pixel Watch. Like I said, I've enjoyed it. It's been a good device. It's been a good upgrade from my old Fitbit Versa 2. So if you're in the market, whether it's this holiday season or otherwise, I don't think this is a first generation product you need to skip. I think you'll be happy with it, and it has some good longevity, in my opinion, for the next couple of years. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.